They pinned her against a cypress tree and forced the wildlife warden to watch as a billionaire's son and his thugs kicked her canine partner with heavy alligator boots. As her dog whimpered in the dark, the spoiled heir just sneered in her face. She was disarmed, alone, and trapped in the mud, but they made a fatal mistake. They didn't know a Delta Force operator was watching from the moss-draped oaks, and he was about to teach them that in the bayou, real justice is a ghost you never hear coming. Before we head into the deep swamp, tell us where you are watching from, and if you stand for justice, please subscribe. The Atchafalaya Basin didn't just hang, it clung. It was a humid weight, smelling of ancient mud and blooming algae. Gray Spanish moss draped from the cypress trees like ghostly curtains, barely stirring in the suffocating heat. Maya Thorne, a wildlife warden with eyes as sharp as a hawk's, felt a bead of sweat slide down her temple. Beside her, Atlas, a Belgian Malinois with a chest like a barrel, let out a low, vibrating growl. He sensed it before she did. The silence was shattered by the mechanical scream of a high-performance airboat. A chrome-plated monster tore through the lily pads, banking hard toward a restricted channel. The driver was Bo Sterling, his silk shirt open and a bottle of bourbon in his hand. He wasn't just trespassing, he was dumping. Thick, oily barrels of toxic sludge were sliding from the deck into the pristine swamp. Maya pulled her vessel alongside. "Mr. Sterling, step away from the controls. You're under arrest." Bo didn't look scared. He looked bored. He pulled a satellite phone. "General? Yeah, the little bird is chirping. Handle it." Suddenly, the swamp exhaled shadows. 2 blacked-out boats emerged from the reeds. 8 mercenaries in tactical gear, not street thugs, but professional operators swarmed her. One man wrenched the radio from her belt while another pinned Maya against a rough cypress trunk, his hand like a vice around her throat. "Watch," Bo whispered. "I want you to see what happens to heroes." They forced her to look as they cornered Atlas. The dog launched himself, a blur of muscle, but the mercenary slammed his 80-pound frame into the mud with a heavy snare. Then came the boots. Heavy, alligator-skin boots striking the Malinois' ribs with a sickening, hollow thud. Maya's screams were muffled as her partner was beaten into silence. Hours later, the adrenaline had vanished. Maya stood before a cracked mirror in her cabin, peeling back her stained uniform. The purple bruises on her neck were a brutal necklace, a reminder of her powerlessness. Everyone would see Atlas in the ICU and call him a hero, but no one saw the woman whose soul was being crushed in the mud. She wasn't just injured. She was being erased by a system that protected the poisoners and punished the protectors. In the silence of the swamp, she had to learn to breathe all over again. The mercenaries were still laughing, their heavy boots poised for another strike, when the swamp itself seemed to exhale a ghost. Silas Vance didn't shout. He didn't give a warning. He was simply there, emerging from the moss-draped shadows like an avenging spirit. It was a surgical operation, a masterclass in elite violence. Target 1, the man holding the snare, never saw the strike coming. A rigid palm to the temple that shut his lights out before his knees hit the mud. Target 2 tried to raise his rifle, but Silas was already inside his guard. A brutal twist of the wrist, the wet pop of a joint, and the weapon clattered into the black water. 12 seconds. That was all it took for 8 professionals to become 8 heaps of unconscious muscle. Silas didn't even look at Bo Sterling, who had scrambled back into his airboat, frozen in drunken terror. He went straight to the Malinois. He scooped Atlas's limp, 80-pound body into his arms as if the dog weighed nothing. "My radio. They took it," Maya rasped, her throat raw from the mercenary's grip. Forget the radio. Silas's voice was a low rumble, steady as a heartbeat. He needs triage. Now. He drove through the maze of the Atchafalaya with a terrifying, controlled speed, reaching a remote emergency clinic in record time. When they burst through the sterile doors, Silas didn't wait for a clerk. He laid Atlas gently on the gurney and produced a plain black credit card before a question could even be asked. Many would wonder why a total stranger would pay a fortune to save a dog that wasn't his. The answer lay in the Warrior's Covenant. Silas knew the general had already frozen the department's emergency funds, hoping to break Maya's spirit by letting her partner die in a cage. But in the world of Delta Force and K-9 units, a dog isn't property. He's a soldier with a rank, a soul, and a brother. When the system fails and the bureaucrats play politics, warriors protect their own. Silas wasn't just paying a bill, he was honoring a blood oath. He looked at Maya, his eyes like cold flint under his cap. "He's a warrior," Silas said, "and warriors don't quit. Neither do you." 48 hours after the screams in the bayou, Maya Thorne walked into the Wildlife Bureau. Her body was a map of bruises, her neck still dark with the memory of a mercenary's grip. But as she moved through the squad room, the usual hum of voices died. Colleagues she had known for a decade, men and women she had bled with in the marshes, suddenly found their computer screens fascinating. No one met her eyes. "My office, now." The voice belonged to the regional director, a man who had pinned Maya's commendations to her chest just a year ago. He didn't offer her a seat. He didn't ask how Atlas was. He simply slid a manila folder across the desk. "Administrative leave, Maya, effective immediately. Internal Affairs is opening an inquiry into your unauthorized escalation of a routine patrol." Maya stared at her ID card on the desk. It wasn't just plastic and ink. It was her oath, her sweat, and her sacrifice. But in this room, under the shadow of General Sterling's influence, it felt like a lead weight. The betrayal wasn't coming from the Sterling family anymore. It was coming from the people she called family. When the bayou's toxic sludge hits the fan, organizations often choose to protect their image over their soldiers. They were crushing her soul to keep their own hands clean. As she walked back through the office, the silence was deafening. In psychology, this is known as hierarchical compliance, or the silencing of the pack. When a powerful predator like the Sterlings targets a single member, the rest of the pack often retreats into survival through separation. They aren't all bad people, they are just paralyzed by the fear of being the next target. Pressure can numb the moral centers of the brain, turning brave wardens into silent bystanders. But Maya wasn't alone. Silas Vance was a principled rebel, a man whose internal compass was so strong that the pack's silence meant nothing to him. He knew what the others refused to acknowledge, that in a rotting system, silence is the fuel for evil. Maya Thorne walked out of that building a pariah, stripped of her badge and her gun, but for the first time she truly understood the war she was in. It wasn't just about the water, it was about the truth. The old Sterling chemical plant was a tomb of rusted steel and poisonous secrets. It was midnight, and the air smelled of ozone and decay. Silas and Maya moved like ink through the ruins. He hadn't just reinforced her station with steel shutters, he had reinforced her resolve. The trap was set. General Sterling and Beau arrived, backed by a wall of mercenaries, confident in their untouchable wealth. Then the world went black. Silas had cut the main transformer, plunging the warehouse into a suffocating, absolute darkness. Maya didn't need light. She had Atlas. The Belgian Malinois moved silently, his collar-mounted camera recording every snarl, every bribe and every admission of guilt from the general's own mouth. Muzzle flashes stuttered in the dark like dying stars. Silas was a phantom, neutralizing targets 1 through 6 in less than 30 seconds. He wasn't a killer. He was a surgeon, removing the rot. Maya cornered Bo in the back office, the 3.80. Silas had given her steady in her hand. This time, she wasn't the victim in the mud. She was the storm. As the sirens wailed in the distance, Maya looked up into the rafters. Silas Vance was already gone, a guardian ghost who had taught her that even in the deepest swamp, the light eventually finds a way. A week later, the humidity finally broke. Maya watched a blur of sable fur chase a ball. Atlas was back, his medical harness a testament to his survival. General Sterling's empire was rotting in a federal cell. Silas Vance had vanished into the swamp mist, a ghost leaving a warrior behind to guard the bayou. Science explains that under fire, oxytocin bonds a K9 to their partner like a blood oath. Atlas didn't just fight, he was biologically incapable of quitting on Maya. If this story moved you, share it to honor our silent guardians. Comment Amen below if you believe justice always finds its way.